PM everyone. How we doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Good.
Awesome. Awesome. We're not quite at a minion today, but still have a good crew. Have a couple thoughts on my end to share about the state of the protocol and the movement in the price and the activity in the field. But before I go, maybe it'd be helpful just to hear from some of the other contributors how things are going and what they're working on and what's on their mind. Frijo, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. A lot been working on the farm. Still working through the convert bonus, and we're getting very deep and getting a lot of insights on how to really prioritize the convert bonus. Truth be told, when we initially created it, I thought we were at the tail end, but revisiting it with Ben and really going through it, it shows to me that like this model can provide a lot of insights. And I think the current standing implementation is a lot better than what we had before. So very happy to see that. Uh, Next, I've been working on, perhaps Ben might be alluding to this later, but we've been recently seeing how the protocol behaves, with tractor in the field, and specifically when there's a order for soil at a certain temperature. And we've seen that there's an inefficiency there where in circumstances where the cultivation factor, or apologies, when the temperature decreases and at the same time the cultivation factor increases due to soil selling out, but there are instances the protocol wants to not decrease its cultivation factor for the next time, insofar to check again that there is still demand for soil at that temperature. And through that and through communicating that to the other contributors, we found a solution that not only solves that issue, but another issue that kind of came up in our brainstorming. So really in the implementation process of that. One last thing that's in my radar, but not my highest priority, is the fork system. And I'm not saying high priority as it's all relative, but mulling about it and how to create a system that has all the features we want. And in discussing it with Ben and other contributors, we think one potential path would be a EIP extension of the current Diamond standard. The Diamond standard is a very modular, extensive framework that allows you to upgrade smart contracts in a way that I think other proxies don't really do. And we think that we can extend this EIP to include a way to have this fork-like system where users of the protocol can migrate to other variations of the Diamond. So very exciting stuff.
Awesome. Thank you for all that information. And these conversations that we've been having about the convert bonus and also the change to the way soil is issued, have those been recorded and posted for the people that are listening and might want to hear more?
They've been recorded, currently in the backlog, so should be uploaded very, very soon.
Great. I think Pintacito is on top of that. Whenever they're posted, would you just post it in the general channel for people to know that they can go listen if they want?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Curious, Default Juice, do you have anything you wanted to talk about? What are you up to?
I don't have a ton to add. I've been helping Frijo on the parameterization side of PI10. There's a ton of moving parts happening right now on the protocol side. So happy to help him with any data that's relevant. I've been getting back into coding after a break on the operations side. then it feels good to feel productive again. So that's it from my side.
Awesome. Yeah, it's grass is always greener sometimes, but good to have you back on the sticks, if you will. Ford, anything interesting on your end?
Yeah, just working on the the convert for tractor contracts. Some recent changes have been made, so I've been working on merging those changes from Frijo into the convert for tractor stuff. The contracts end up being really too big, and so I've been having to do some refactoring to make them all fit on the. There's only like so large of a size of contract, like 24 kilobytes, that you can deploy on the blockchain. And basically, as I kept adding more and more stuff to the like tractor helper functions and silo helper functions, it got too big. So now I'm having to unfortunately refactor and split things apart. But once that's done, then I can see what is left remaining to be resolved for the convert contracts. But so far, so good.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I continue to be super excited about the convert order book via tractor. I think it's going to be a big deal, particularly combined with the convert bonus and the penalty system. So, very cool. Pentacito, anything on your end worth talking about?
Not at the moment. Just chugging out a bunch of articles. Excited to have Burr's Why Pinto go out yesterday, and should have another couple articles dropping within the next week, with some more coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, that article was really powerful. Great stuff. I don't think Burr is here at the moment, but yeah, really cool what they wrote. Okay, so there are a couple things that I think are worth talking about. We'll try not to be too lengthy. Oh wow, we have Sovereignllama. This is a new. I don't think we've ever had Sovereignllama in the chat before. Curious, Sovereignllama, if you have any interest in saying hi.
Hi.
How we doing?
Good, man. How are you guys doing this morning?
What's up?
Doing great.
Not much, man. Just digging these markets and looking forward to when Pinto pegs here and we can start minting some Pintos.
Hell yeah, brother. That's awesome.
How'd you go?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
This is the town hall, so anyone that comes, it's an open environment. If you had anything you wanted to talk about or share or ask questions about, this is an open forum. So feel free if you have anything you wanted to talk about.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Awesome. So the couple of things on my mind. First, I think it is worth noting how important it is to see the price action that's been happening over the past couple weeks. In particular, to see the lack through the system, the lack of capital leaving, even as the price has gone up, is a very good indicator that the outflows that were going to occur have occurred. And this is something that I look at in particular from the perspective of when the system is at sort of its fully functioning state. One of the things that we're trying to figure out at the moment, and this is deeply related to the convert bonus and penalty system, is what does the optimal shape of a DPEG look like? Should it be like a quick DPEG that's violent with then like a very rapid repeg? Is it better to have a slow descent and then a slow rise? You want a slow descent and a fast rise, a fast descent and a slow rise? It's unclear. And perhaps what the system prefers is downstream of the health of the system. A lot of the sophistication around the convert bonus and penalty system comes from exactly this dynamic where, in practice, the amount that the system may actually want to incentivize converts really is contingent on the overall state of the system. And at this point, we don't know, in the grand scheme of things, the best way to make that happen. And so for me, given that this is the first major cycle in Pinto's history, it's incredibly interesting at minimum to see what's been happening. And there's been converts over the past couple weeks that have increased the price, but there have also been general upward price movements in the crypto market. And historically, the upward price movements in the crypto market have made it such that there is a higher opportunity cost for sticking around in many instances. And so the fact that the crypto market is bussing and people have not been leaving the system, but have been comfortable simply getting the increase in the increase in value sort of secondhand through the increase in value of the liquidity of the system has been highly encouraging for me. One of the things that the stock system really optimizes for is when there is a depeg, it wants people that are going to leave quickly and minimize the amount of capital that in its return to its value target, the value that is leaving the system as it returns to its value target. But there are some participants that at 50 cents may say, I'm leaving, but I want to leave at 75 cents, or I want to leave at 85 cents. Now, some of them may end up being convinced when the protocol returns to 85 cents that it's actually we're going to return to its value target, and therefore it's a good idea to stick around. And obviously, we don't know what percentage of users fall into that category. But it's been very encouraging for me to see the lack of outflows as the price has come up. And this is a strong indicator that if we continue to see converts and the crypto market stays relatively healthy, it appears like the system is well on its way to returning to the value target in the not too distant future. So that's obviously, we don't know what the future holds and anything could happen. But from where I sit, the system has started to log really positive and encouraging data. The flip side of it, though, is, and this is one of the benefits from my perspective of having the system be live and be in the wild even before things are perfect, is the fact that we're actually getting a lot of data about where there are problems in the system. With the launch of the tractor order book, which has been, I think, tremendously helpful for the system. The temp has been coming down, which up until it started to come down was Karakaya, who I saw just joined us. Their main issue with the health of the system, so that was a big bonus. But basically, we now have this issue that's been discovered where as Frijo was talking about, the cultivation factor effectively resets every other season in the instance that we're currently in, where we have some demand for sowing via a tractor order that is the lowest temperature. And so this has created a problem where in practice, no one can really sow in size via tractor at the moment. And this is a big problem. And so the main thing for me is it's very hard to imagine the state of the system and the overall health of the system improving significantly without us fixing this issue. Ultimately, the health of the system is contingent on the system being viewed as credit worthy. And right now, the credit facility is sort of broken. So the glass half full attitude there as well, given that the system is credit based and the credit facility is broken, the fact that the protocol is still chugging along is actually very bullish, which I subscribe to. But at the same time, this is a big problem that we have to fix imminently. So I've been working quite deeply with Frijo on a solution to this. We are at the point in the model where things are so complicated that there are no simple solutions. One of the guiding principles in Beanstalk originally, and still to this day, is that things should be as simple as possible. But at some level, we are at the point where the system is so strong and the level of refinement that we're able to do at this point is truly at the margin that when we run into an edge case like this, it isn't so simple to solve. So Frijo, I don't know if you have the flow chart handy that you'd constructed, But if you drop it in the town hall chat, I'd be curious if you wanted to just walk people through it quickly, or I can if you prefer. But I think it's helpful just to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Read my mind. Posted it in the town hall chat. It is a lot, but it actually is very intuitive if we walk through it. So perhaps just to give a reference point of how the cultivation factor works now, we mainly perform a binary check if soil was sold out or not. If soil was sold out, then cultivation factor increases for capacity to increase, amount of soil available, and when soil does not sell out, the cultivation factor decreases. Now, given this new problem we encountered, this binary nature is not sufficient enough to kind of encapsulate the behavior we want. So, this flow chart here.
And can you just, in the context of the cultivation factor description you gave, just re-explain the problem for people?
Yeah. The problem is that currently, when there's a bidder for soil at a certain temperature, due to the nature of how the cultivation factor changes, and especially in conjunction with the temperature, there are instances where cultivation factor goes up and the temperature decreases. The reason why the cultivation factor increases is because when the protocol sees there's a bid for soil, and so much so that it is constrained, the supply has been met. The supply of soil increases to kind of let in more demand. But in this instance, the measure of demand is inaccurate because for that specific bidder, he is saying there is demand for soil at a certain temperature. Whereas the cultivation factor kind of just takes demand for soil independent of temperature. So we have an instance, to make it more practical, where someone sows at a certain temperature, the cultivation factor increases, the temperature decreases. This guy who wants to sow at a certain temperature, is not wanting to sow because the temperature has decreased. And then after, because there was no sowing, the cultivation factor drops. And what we kind of see in the protocol right now is that by the time the temperature reaches back to the user's target temperature in the extractor order, the cultivation factor has effectively reset. And this causes the initial sower, have a case where the cultivation factor never increases for this sower, and basically, unable to match his demand. So, we need to derive a solution where the protocol is able to increase the capacity for soil, or the soil issued, to kind of match this guy's demand. So to solve this issue, what the protocol effectively does is that it needs to check the demand for soil at that temperature again. To give more concrete examples, this guy, he has placed an order at 749 percent temperature. The protocol, once this user is sown, we need to check whether or not he will sell again at 749, and only then we need to increase the capacity, but otherwise keep it the same. So whenever a user sows and soil sells out, cultivation factor increases, but then stays steady until the temperature that was last sown was the same. And then, protocol will check if the user will sow at that temperature again, and if not, it will then decrease. So, the effect of this change is that the cultivation factor should ramp up over time, even though there are seasons where soil is not sold out, because it knows there's a possibility that someone will bid for soil at a higher temperature. Is that comprehensible for people?
I followed, but I'm curious if people that are listening that didn't already know how this works, if they have questions. Awesome. Looks like you're getting pretty good at explaining this stuff, sir. A question. Could you maybe explain, because one of the points that Ford Pinto brought up to the original solution that we had was that if we just keep the cultivation factor the same, and let's say someone now puts in another tractor order at 700%, for example, but willing to sow less Pinto per season than the tractor order at 749, the cultivation factor might get stuck at a higher level. So could you just maybe explain the second element of the solution and how why we want to check if demand for soil is steady or increasing, and then reset that cultivation temp?
Yes. So Ford Pinto highlighted a issue with this implementation. In the protocol's desire to kind of increase the capacity for this one person, there will be instances of seasons where there will be seasons where soil does not sell out and it's a lot of soil. And the whole point of the cultivation factor is to introduce scarcity in the system. So, the case that was highlighted is, let's say, maybe I'll paste another image. It's in the GitHub that may also give some more context on what's happening. So, I just uploaded a pitch of the cultivation factor, and I've put some MS Paint on it, the red line, and that's the expected behavior of cultivation factor with a sower at a certain temperature. Instead of cultivation factor decreasing, it'll stay steady until the temperature that last sowed hits, and if it sows, then it will increase. So the effect is that the cultivation factor should rise slowly over time. Now the issue is that, let's say the cultivation factor has risen to 5%, and there is somebody who is willing to sow at a lower temperature, placing an order for a lower temperature, but does not fill up the entire capacity, right? Maybe to put some numbers, let's say the current soil issued was 1,000, and someone places an order to sow 200 a season. Now we have a scenario where in every season there's 800 soil, at least 800 soil available. You'll see 800 and 900 or 1,000, depending on how as the cultivation factor increases. But the main point is that there is some demand for soil, and there's a lot of soil, still being not sown. So the goal here is that once the protocol sees there's another bidder, it should try to match this guy's demand, this new person's demand for soil. So in this instance, even though the protocol knows that they may be a bidder at a higher temperature, it wants to decrease the cultivation factor to match this new person's demand for soil. So in this instance, when demand for soil is steady or increasing, we actually want to decrease the amount of soil such that the soil capacity kind of meets this guy's soil, and eventually it gets to the point where the soil gets sold out by this guy's 200. This way, the protocol still has a way to react to this guy's sow and change the cultivation factor as a result. The ultimate goal is so that and most of the time the protocol is selling out soil. So this is an attempt to fix that issue.
Thank you for that explanation, Frijo. Curious if people have questions, comments, concerns, problems with the solution. We spent a good amount of time on it, you and I, so curious what the people think.
Yeah, and there's also one more tidbit as well. just to kind of finalize the thought, and before we kind of ask questions, there are cases where the system is almost selling out, but not selling out. Let's say someone is selling 95% of the soil. The current system would decrease the amount of soil next season. The guy would sell out, and then it would increase the capacity. So you can kind of imagine in the case where someone has demand, but almost to the capacity, the protocol is kind of going to oscillate around this cultivation factor. So to kind of smooth that out, we've added a threshold called like the almost selling out threshold, where once this threshold is hit in the soil supply, soil is considered almost selling out. It's not selling out, but it's not selling out. It's almost selling out. And the purpose here is that when the protocol is in that threshold, the cultivation factor remains unchanged. So, instead of seeing the cultivation factor oscillate around some value, you'll see a case where it kind of stays steady now. And the main benefit here is just, to reduce the volatility of the cultivation factor.
That's great extra color. Thank you for making all of that clear. So with that, do people have questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Ford, I'm curious if this is up to your standards. I know you were the one that pointed out the problem with the previous solution, or maybe not the problem, but the inefficiency. You're still muted, Ford. I don't know if you're talking. Maybe they're not at the mic right now. Curious if anyone else has any comments or questions on that front.
Wanted to comment that this is awesome data to get with the tractor order book. And it's awesome to get it now rather than where we're at scale. I would hate to see this occur when Pinto's at $1 billion.
Totally. And now the credit facility breaks. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, not good, not good. I can totally imagine a scenario where we just finish a credit cycle and then no one's able to sell. Like, it's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. 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 So I feel good about this. For me personally, this is a top priority to fixing this inefficiency so that hopefully the system can resume its movement back towards the value target. Of course, the current soil, most of the soil being sown in the stuff in the tractor orders are pre-existing Pinto. So it's not exactly one-to-one, but I still feel like with the credit facility being broken, it's hard to imagine the health of the protocol improving at the rate that it could if the credit facility were working. So for me, it's a big priority to fix this, and hoping that we can get that done pretty soon.
Hey guys, I'm kind of new here, but maybe I missed the previous town hall. But what is the solution that you guys are working on to, in layman terms, to fix the credit facility? Because my kind of I've been involved in this a little bit. I've got a fair amount of Pinto sown and just kind of watching the protocol work, but I think some of the issues are there's not enough soil, but then also maybe people are kind of thinking, well, we got just about 38 million pods in queue that can't really get minted until the value of Pinto hits that target. So is the field and sowing Pinto a bigger problem, or getting Pinto to flip into the bullish, where to have that cycle turn over, and now we're seeing tons of new Pinto get minted, and finally the people that are sowing are being rewarded, which will then bring more eyes and attraction to sowing for that next cycle, for when it flips bullish again, everything goes under, and it just kind of flows back and forth. Am I understanding that correctly, or am I off here?
This is a great question. Your understanding is generally correct. Maybe just to clarify a couple things. I know a lot of the language that we use might be a little bit difficult to understand for a newcomer or a relatively new participant in the system. So to explain the current situation, there are two primary peg maintenance tools that the system has available to it. The first is the field, which is the way that the protocol reduces the supply. So anytime that there's excess supply, the protocol tries to borrow enough Pinto and burn whatever Pinto it borrows to remove enough supply to return the price to its value target. Through that mechanism, the protocol and the value of Pinto fundamentally is from the credit of the system. The users of Pinto should be holding Pinto under the presumption that the protocol itself is creditworthy, where creditworthiness is defined as being able to attract enough lenders to remove enough supply to return the price to its value target. Now, the second element of the system for peg maintenance is conversions, where even if there's no demand for sowing in the field, through the silo, participants within the silo can change their allocation between Pinto and LP, and by moving from LP to Pinto can increase the price by removing the Pinto from the liquidity pool, or converting from Pinto to LP, they can decrease the price. So conversions are like an within the system, without new capital coming in to buy the Pinto and remove it from the supply. The converts effectively allow for the system to perform some peg maintenance or incentivize peg maintenance from its participants without borrowing and lending. What we've started to see over the past couple weeks is the protocol is continuing to return to its value target, largely due to two things. One, the value of the liquidity in the pools is going up because the crypto market's going up and there's no outflows. So just the value of the liquidity is going up. But separately, there have been conversions within the silo. So some users over the past couple weeks have been taking their LP tokens and converting them to Pinto. And that has the direct effect of raising the price. That's independent of the field of the credit facility. However, the field is currently not working. And the reason it's not working, as you said, Sovereignllama, is that there's not enough soil. Now, a couple months ago, we implemented something called the soil snowball, which introduced the cultivation factor, with the idea being that when there is minimal demand for soil, or there's still price discovery happening in the field, it is better for the system to offer less soil until it finds that sweet spot where there is demand for soil, and then to scale up the cultivation factor and therefore scale up the soil to meet demand. The problem is that there's an edge case, not even necessarily an edge case, but there's just a case once you have tractor, where the tractor orders as they've been implemented aren't, I guess really it's like that the measurement of demand for soil and the change in the cultivation factor isn't compatible with having tractor live, and the behavior of users once we have tractor. So in practice, we're stuck in the situation where there is demand at 749, but there's no demand at 748. The soil sells out at 749. The temp comes down to 748, and the amount of soil goes up. But now, when the temp comes down, no one sows. There's no orders at 748. So then the system logs a season where there's no demand for soil. The temp goes back up to 749. So now there is demand for soil again, but as it currently stands, the cultivation factor comes back down. So in practice, the amount of soil available never ramps up. So right now, tractor doesn't really work from the perspective of we have an outstanding tractor sow order with on the order of 75,000 Pinto or so that's been live for like a week plus, I believe, and only like 2,000 or 3,000 Pinto have been sown because of this issue. Whereas obviously in an efficient system, the system should have pretty quickly taken in all of that demand for soil. So that's the current problem. Now, first up, before I talk about how that's related to the health of the system and the repeg, potential repeg, is that problem clear to you, Sovereignllama?
Yeah, I think I understand the gist of it. So tractor, people put their tractor orders in, but then it's only executing orders at a certain temperature. Am I getting that correctly?
Exactly right.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense to me. I understand that. And do you think that's the only thing holding us back for getting paid? Because I've been kind of watching it and seeing how things go, and really the biggest influence that I see on PEG right now is basically the price of the paired assets in the pools, right? So the price of Bitcoin, the price of Solana, the price of ETH. As these prices go up, Pinto is getting closer to PEG. So in that sense, would it not be better to look at those conversion mechanisms? Because I think once you have the conversion mechanisms perfectly to kind of balance that price of Pinto and get it very close to kind of that point where it flips to mint, and then once it gets over that mint, well, now there's new Pintos being minted. Like, wouldn't that bring more demand into the field and the credit facility? Because I think Tractor and everything makes it easier for people to sow Pinto, which is definitely good. But unless we see that rotation or that credit cycle flipping to above PEG and seeing new Pintos being minted into the system every now and then, I think people are going to be pretty cold from sowing that Pinto.
I couldn't agree more. Your analysis is totally on the money. In particular, this is where the efficacy of the convert system really becomes the next great improvement that can be made to the system. So the field has been made pretty efficient. We have this one issue with the design that once we fix it, at that point, the field should be hyper efficient, candidly. And to your point, well, if one of the PEG maintenance mechanisms works, but the other one doesn't, the people that participated in the one that works, but they never get paid back because the other one doesn't work, they're not going to be so happy. Now, I would just hedge a little bit on that and say, in theory, the system can work exclusively from the field in the sense of if it removes enough supply, it should return to the value target. But the convert is incredibly powerful if it works. Now, the current convert incentive mechanism is just with seeds, and seeds yield stock over time. And so there's an incentive that you can realize through converting over time. And this applies intra the various LP tokens, where the system offers different seeds depending on which LP token you hold. And then there's also a difference between the LP tokens and the Pinto itself. Now, the seeds have generally shown a high degree of efficacy at managing the distribution of the liquidity itself, meaning, but much less so for Pinto versus LP. And there's been a good amount of chatter and conversation within this crew around what this means. And the current understanding of what this means is that there is a strong preference from users to continue to hold LP over raw Pinto. And there's a variety of different potential reasons for that. But therefore, what we've sort of discovered is that the amount of seeds that the system is offering would have to get pretty disproportionate in order to be the sole factor in incentivizing converts when the system wants. So originally, the crop rate would set the ratio between the LP tokens with the max seeds, the seeds of that LP token with the seeds of Pinto, which is sort of like the threshold, if you will, of how much does the system prefer Pinto versus holding LP. even the most LP, the most incentivized LP, that when the system originally went live was capped at 100%, such that there was a hard deadline or hard limit, if you will, that the amount of seeds that an LP could earn, Pinto could never earn more than the LP with the max seeds. And converts were pretty low in that instance.
Can I have a
Go ahead.
Hungry Man breakfast burrito, please? Thank you.
Please mute Pintacito. Although happy to hear you're feeding yourself well.
Do you like breakfast burritos?
Yeah,
Anyone
Okay,
see?
sorry about that.
all good, all good. The change, which some of the people on this call, though I see Ford Pinto hopped, to change the crop ratio from 100% to 200%, made it such that the seed incentive was exacerbated, such that now Pinto is heavily incentivized, significantly more than any of the LP tokens in terms of seeds. And we've seen some converts, but we still haven't gotten to the point where the system can really, with high efficacy, incentivize converts. So to your point, Sovereignllama, the other main, and maybe not even other, like the main development effort that's currently happening, the current the frontier of the progress on developing this model further is on creating a hyper robust and efficient convert, penalty, and bonus system. Emphasis on the bonus system, where right now the seeds aren't enough incentive. The question is, can we create a bonus system that makes it such that pretty quickly, pretty with low friction, if the system wants to incentivize converts, it's able to incentivize the converts. So this is a work in progress. Just for me personally, I'm very excited about the current state of the progress. This is something that Brendan and I have been talking about internally for years now. I remember vividly talking about it over 2 years ago and running into a couple problems with how strong we could make the bonus. And at this point, all of those problems have been resolved. And now we're sort of in the fine tuning era of trying to really get into the nitty gritty and optimize the system as best we can. As we've learned from the field issue that we have now with Tractor, like there are a lot of minutia that have to be considered, and so we're taking our sweet time to make sure that we get it right. But hopefully, in the next couple weeks, we're going to be at a point where we have our solution there, ready for publishing and discussion, and then hopefully, in the not too distant future, we can even get that live. And at that point, I think the system will be in a really interesting and exciting place. Obviously, we have to check and see if the bonus system actually works and has efficacy. But if it does, then the problem space sort of becomes, well, given the state of the system, how quickly does the system actually want to return to the value target, and what does the optimal deviations look like? And at that point in time, the system starts to look a lot more like it's optimizing around creating reliable and consistent cycles, as opposed to just responding in a very simple fashion. So for me, this does represent like a checkpoint. Once we have a strong bonus and penalty system for converts, it represents a potentially really powerful checkpoint for the system in terms of its overall efficacy. So for me, I'm looking forward to seeing how all this works. We're still, I think, a couple weeks away from having this. Maybe within a week or two, we'll have the design itself ready, and then a couple more weeks before we can test it out in the wild. But given that this has been years in the making, personally, I'm very excited. And I appreciate you raising this, Sovereignllama. I totally appreciate how for you, as a newer member of the system, this is what's on your mind. And it's very validating for me that we're working on the right stuff. So appreciate your question very much. And I know I've been speaking for a while, so I'm happy to clarify or answer more, but that's a little bit how I've been thinking about this.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more with you that I'm, quite excited for the system because, once you get those mechanisms aligned and you create this flywheel and then it just runs. And I think there's a lot of potential with it. So yeah, thanks for clearing that for me.
Awesome.
Hi
Thank you very
guys.
much. What's up, Karakaya? Welcome.
Hello, my buddy. How are you?
Let's go.
Hello. Happy to hear from you, all of you. Thanks for the updates. I was quite obsessed about the increase field rates. Sorry for my English. I think we did very quite good progress on that issue. I want to thank all of you. And now I'm a bit obsessed about how can we attract new users. I wrote, maybe you read, I don't know, but maybe we can think about some reference system to make people more contribute to Pinto, like you bring somebody to system and you get some little bonuses, maybe like pods if they solve. What do you think about this? Does it sound like Ponzi? I don't think like this, but maybe it can sound somebody like this. What do you think? I wanna hear.
Well, I think it's a very interesting suggestion personally. I don't think it's necessarily the right time to do it. For me, I really want to see the protocol get to this checkpoint that I'm talking about, where it feels like all of the major improvements that can be made to the model are put in place, and we see how that works just in the current situation that we're in, before we try to create any sort of viral marketing incentives or anything like that. But assuming that that all goes well in the next month or two, and towards, let's assume that the protocol's healthy and it returns to its value target over the next month or two, and then it hangs out at its value target for a month or two. I think that type of system, a referral system, something to create a network effect and some virality, is potentially very interesting. The most interesting element of it for me is the protocol at some level. Obviously, it wants to pay a lower temp at the margin. But in these early days, like 1,300%, 1,400%, 800% temp, these are all huge numbers. But from the system's perspective and its long-term health, the difference between 800 and 900% is pretty marginal. And even 1,300 and 1,400% is pretty marginal in terms of the grand scheme of things. And so from that perspective, something simple where if someone sews in your referral link, then you get some sort of extra pods. That's very interesting. Now we have to figure out, can people game the system? Why can't I refer myself? And now I just get a bonus. So there is some element of that. Trying to just prevent manipulation and do it properly. There's some considerations there. But I think at a high level, it's a very interesting idea. To answer your question about does that make it a Ponzi scheme or something like that, for me, the way I think about this is we are fundamentally participating in a system that we all, because of its transparency, understand if everyone tried to leave at once, there would not be enough liquidity there for everyone to get out 100 cents on the dollar in terms of the current value that they hold in the system. But through this partial liquidation value, that is also where the scalability and the efficiency of the system comes from. And so the flip side of that is the people that stick around are actually participating in explicit value creation, right? So the more people that participate and the more capital that comes to the system and stays here, the more Pinto will be minted. And Pinto being minted is actually a representation of value being created, new value being created. So from that perspective, whereas a Ponzi would be people put in money thinking that they have 100 cents on the dollar if everyone wanted to leave because all of the value is supposedly accounted for in the form of other assets. In this case, Pinto is an endogenously valued thing, which quite transparently the system makes clear there is not any value backing the Pinto itself. There is liquidity that Pinto trades against from which you get a price, but people actually own that liquidity. It's not like the Pinto itself is collateralized by that liquidity. So for me, I don't find the Ponzi argument compelling in the slightest. And I think it's more just the element of this is a social phenomenon. Credit is a social phenomenon. Money is a social phenomenon. And the idea of how can we create at the margin an incentive for people to actively share this with their friends, because that is the highest value creating activity that people can perform as a member of this community. That to me makes a ton of sense. In a perfect world, people are naturally already incentivized to do so, right? To convince their friends because they already have pods. So they should already be incentivized to tell their friends, hey, you should participate in this. But at the margin, a little grease such that if they convince some of their friends, they get extra pods. I don't see a big problem with that personally, particularly in these early days.
Thank you. I haven't thought about people can refer themselves thing. And I think, yes, we should protect the system at first. But if they refer themselves, okay, let them get the bonus. I think it's equal for the protocol. So I'm also in normal life, I'm in sailing business. And I think if people think they are the part of the thing, they contribute more. Even the price is very small, could be small, but people are making some how can I say sacrifice their time or their social contracts. So maybe we can it can maybe make in the best scenario it can make some snowball effect too. I hope. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your nice comments.
Of course. Yeah, I think the best way to do it would probably be that it's just a UI based referral system where it's like it would just auto send like the back, 100% of the pods or whatever in your plot to your friend that referred you. So in practice, like you'd get a slightly lower temp. What do you don't know the difference necessarily, and then your friend gets a little bit. So that's probably the way to do it in a way that's manipulation resistant. Otherwise, like system's just going to be paying an extra 100% to everyone. But I think it's doable. All right, we're closing in here on the hour. Curious if anyone has anything else they wanted to talk about briefly. Otherwise, we'll be back next week for more fun.
I just have a couple quick things there, Ben. You
Please.
guys being on base, I know base is very pushing kind of apps and development in their ecosystem. Has there been any communications with the base team regarding Pinto?
A bit. We've done the late night on base stuff. We did the Rachel. I forget her handle, but we've done a couple base related marketing stuff. There's also, more like the who's who at base, which we do have access to, but personally feel like it's still a little early for us to look for real marketing from institutions like that, given that we still have this low hanging fruit with the convert bonus and penalty system. But my hope is that once the system is in a really strong spot and it's at its value target and it's doing its thing, it seems like we're in a position where people that are influential in the base community will be willing and able to talk to us, and hopefully we can get them to spread the good word.
Okay, sounds good. And then have you guys looked at any, I know the pools in here, but, setting up pools with maybe other protocols to maybe suck up some of that excess Pinto? For example, I know P-Pods is a protocol that uses market volatility and Pinto itself, not being completely connected to peg is relatively more volatile than other currencies, being endogenous and all of that. Have you guys considered that, or is that something even worth exploring? It just kind of occurred to me, so I'm not sure if there'd be any value, if it would help deal with the peg issue and stuff.
I think in an indirect way it does, like from the perspective of protocols that support composability, supporting Pinto. That's obviously great, and that has the potential to create demand for more Pinto, which improves the health of the system. But candidly, our experience, and I can't say I understand the inner workings of the Peapod protocol, so I'm talking more high level. Our experience is that there's not a lot of real demand sinks for Pinto at the moment. And this isn't necessarily due to Pinto or the other protocols. This is a problem with the EVM, which is that in order to earn the interest from Pinto, you have to deposit it in the silo. And silo deposits, due to the stock mechanism, are not just indexed by token type and amount of deposit, they're also indexed by time of deposit. And as soon as you go from just amount of deposit to amount of deposit and time of deposit, you lose support for the ERC20 standard, and now you have to do 1155s. And most of crypto doesn't really support 1155s in a way that is efficient. So this is a big part of the friction with Pinto existing in the EVM, whether that's on Base or another EVM chain, which Brendan and myself have been working on now for years. A new virtual machine that should solve a lot of these problems. But that the short answer is in the near future, it doesn't feel like the best use of our efforts is on these sort of integrations with protocols that can't really natively support the Pinto incentive mechanisms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all your questions, Sovereignllama. I hope you come back next week with even more. This has been super enjoyable. I'm very grateful for your questions.
Yeah, I will definitely try and make it.
Awesome. So we're a little over the hour. We'll just leave it open in case anyone has any final thoughts as we close out here. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll catch you next week. But if you people want, Frijo and I will be having a public conversation about the convert bonus and penalty. It was supposed to start at the top of the hour. We're probably going to start it in like 30 minutes or so. But for those that are interested, feel free to listen live. Otherwise, at some point, the recording will be posted as well. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Talk soon.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.